Hi, everyone, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live today. Over the next 30 minutes, it's going to go really fast. I'm having an amazing conversation with one of my favorite people. We're talking with Jackie Schafer at ClearBrief about using her business and her experience in the venture landscape as a way for you to really understand the experience of women founders working through venture capital in this space that I think a lot of us feel like is for someone over there. I want to demystify it. And I also want you to understand the founder experience and why it's so important that you and all your 10 best friends are all starting to get involved in investing in venture capital. We have got to close the gender funding gap for a bajillion reasons. It's better for the economy, better for jobs. And certainly we need Jackie and women like Jackie running the companies that are going to be the big behemoths in the future. As we look at like what's going on the national stage right now, it's like, wait, where are all the women leading? Really, we gotta, if we want to equal pay, I'm just fierce about like, we gotta get women being the CEOs of the big companies of tomorrow. Let me give you a little bit of a landscape overview just so you ground it in the stuff that I think is like important for you to know. Historically, women actually have been the philanthropists in the family, not necessarily the investors in the family. And that, if you don't know, it can be dangerous. That's not necessarily good for us. In part, why it's so critical for you to understand this is you are likely going to be the manager of your family money because you're going to live longer. And if you don't understand it, you haven't played a role in it, you can actually find yourself in a pickle. And the data is pretty clear that a lot of women experience that. In the wealthiest families in the country, they're investing in venture capital. It's considered a private investment, private market investment. And it's also been kind of like a boys' game in the past. But here's the interesting thing. Not only are you going to be managing the family money by yourself at some point, most likely statistically, but women have 52% of the wealth today. And by 2030, American women are going to be managing $30 trillion of wealth. It's going to be 60% of all the wealth in the United States. So it is really important for us to think about how are we using this power that we have, the wealth that we're entrusted with and responsible for to change things towards the world that we want to see. Women founders like Jackie Schafer are going to return 34% more for their investors on average. Jackie's so great, she's probably going to blow that out of the park. But women return more money to their investors. And women venture capitalists, venture firms run by women return more money for the investors in venture firms. However, just because the data is powerful and clear doesn't mean we actually are behaving aligned with our best interests as a culturally and in this country. Only 2% of all venture capital funding goes to companies founded by women. I want you to think about that. If we return more for our investors, women are getting more of the graduate degrees. We're in it. We've got the expertise and we even have the money. What's the gap here? Why are we not funding in big dollars the companies founded by women? It's something we all need to interrogate. It's cultural, and it's time for us to be fierce about figuring this out and making change. That's the mission I'm on, is I want every woman to know about this and to put it in her plan at some point in time. We've partnered with the NASDAQ Foundation. I mean, how big is that? That's so exciting because their commitment is to inspire and educate women on their investing journey. They want more women understanding and playing a role in this space. What they know, and I know, is that women invest aligned with their values. So if you haven't taken a values check recently, it's good for you to do that and then see if your current investments are aligned with your values. I had that experience in my mid 40s and I was a little heartbroken that I was accidentally in some mutual funds somebody else was picking for me. I was investing in things that were the opposite of my values. In fact, I've been donating and volunteering my time to do other things, the opposite of what those investments were. So don't ignore it. Lift up the hood. It's time for us to take an active role in really thinking through this. Now, I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to interview my friend Jackie, who I adore. I am so thrilled for you to get to meet Jackie Schafer. She's the founder and CEO and the product leader of ClearBrief AI. This is the leading legal AI platform for law firm litigators and in-house investigations and employment teams. And I just found out she's like finalist winning awards nonstop and really being recognized for this. So it's not just me saying this. It is industry-wide accepted that she's the one, and she's a portfolio company at How Women Invest, the venture firm that I run, and along with 500 other women investors, by the way. ClearBrief holds 7 patents in the AI space and is used by the largest global law firms, courts, government agencies, and in-house teams, including Microsoft. So Jackie is in it, and you've been hearing about AI, and this is what I want you to really think about. Like, people talk about the concerns about AI and the benefits. Well, only 2% of all the founders of AI companies are women. So we have got to fuel the women like Jackie who are seeding the future. Jackie, welcome. I'm so glad you're here,
Thank you
and we're
so
going to
much
be
for having that was such a wonderful intro. Thank you.
you can tell how passionate I am about you as a leader and the work that we're doing together. And we've all committed when we work together to a credo, which is like a countercultural invitation to shift the culture to be better for women. Would you mind starting us off with a little bit of a walk through the credo? And then I've got a bunch of questions for you.
I would love to. I love the credo. Okay, so number 1 is be fierce advocates for each other. Number 2 is say yes to helping and connecting each other. If a woman asks for an introduction, make your first reaction yes. Men are often better at this than women. 3, we ask you to reinforce her voice. When she speaks up and isn't heard, be her megaphone and ensure she gets credit. And maybe most important, you get out there yourself and be unabashedly visible. Build your LinkedIn, build your thought leadership, network as part of your workday. The old ways of women being invisible are over. There is nothing indelicate about standing in your power, owning your voice.
Think about that. Think about how much better our lives would have been if this was the culture that we all ascribe to. That's backing each other up, supporting each other, women getting, visibility and voice.
This should be like the new, and may you live by the Girl Scout law. Like, let's get an update.
Well, thank you for that. You did a beautiful job. So, can we talk about being a founder? What do you most need from any woman? Maybe let's say the people who are actually exploring angel investing, which is the kind of often the first money people look for when they start their company. It's like some friends that say, "Would you put 5,000 or $10,000 into my company to get it started before you build enough there to go maybe to get an institutional venture capital?"
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say one of the most important things when you start is to establish yourself as being an expert who can provide subject matter help on the topic that the founder is building in. So if you go right into talking about, investing, sometimes that actually that could be very exciting to founders, but they may not be ready for that. They may not totally understand what that means at this stage. So I think starting the relationship by just simply offering your expertise is incredibly valuable. One of the things that the best founders are doing at this very early stage when they are, pre-seed is they are trying to validate their assumptions and ideas. And so I'll give you a real example from my own journey where when I was starting out building ClearBrief, I'm a career litigator myself. So, I started out in big law, spent a lot of years in government doing appellate, complex litigation. I was also in house. So I had strong opinions about what I thought an AI legal writing product should do. And I started and I made a spreadsheet of all the attorneys that I knew. And I went out and I interviewed them and I just kept adding people to the list where I would start with my closest friends and I'd sort of vet and validate my thoughts around the product. And I take detailed notes and I would ask them for an intro to the next someone who was another degree removed because the people who are closest to you aren't necessarily going to give you unbiased feedback on your idea because they
Good job, Jackie.
we're excited for you, but you need, to kind of ask them for that next intro. And so actually I eventually had around 200 rows on my spreadsheet. And that actually became my first sort of go to market list of, okay, when we have the product ready, I knew which people I could reach out to try it or to give feedback. So by being one of those people who's establishing yourself as like, I can give you feedback on the product. Sure. Then you become, not only do you get sort of an early window into what they're building, you'll be very tapped into when they decide to do a round, you'll be, high on their list to think of to invite you to invest.
Fantastic. So, an angel investor is somebody who will give you early cash to really help you get from idea to really start to get to the point where you can build the company and you can start to scale. So, female investors, like our venture firm, are often a super safe place for women founders for their first venture investment. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with the different kinds of venture capitalists? So, venture capital is money that can stay with you for a while, usually for everybody listening. If you as an individual want to invest in an angel round of a company, it's early and not diverse way of investing unless you can invest in 20 of them, right? So some people think, most people think it's actually safer as an investor yourself to invest in a venture firm where that firm will invest in 10 to 20 different companies and you have partial ownership in all of them, more diversified. It's like a mutual fund versus an individual stock. So a venture firm aggregates people's capital and then a professional team of people evaluates and makes decisions. But there's historically, some of these environments are really kind of not comfortable and good for women. So do you wanna talk, Jackie, about sort of why it's been important for you to get female investors?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is extremely, extremely difficult for a first time founder like myself to raise a venture capital round right out of the gate, right? From an established VC where the VC is leading the round with a very large check. It's very, 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 very hard to do. So there's the opportunity to get to take in capital at different points before that sort of milestone where you're in this process as a founder of building traction, building traction, building traction to be able to raise larger amounts of capital. And so I definitely think it's there, I don't know, I'm struggling a little bit talking from the founder perspective versus the investor perspective.
Talk about
Well,
being a founder. Yeah, talk about your
yeah, I
experience.
mean,
It's
I
important.
I think I've had experiences, early on pitching to just individuals, and actually my very earliest, angel investors were men. And I did get an amazing woman, Beth Birnbaum,
Mhm.
who's been one of my biggest advisors and champions a little bit, into the journey after I got a few more introductions and connections. But for the founder, it's really about getting that first angel investor. And in order to get them to actually write a check, they have to do some level of due diligence. And that's what, Julie, what you were alluding to about as when investors band together and with, angel networks and other things, it professionalizes the due diligence. So in theory, it's reducing the risk for the investor. But it's sort of there's pros and cons to that because as the larger, more professionalized investor groups do this, they start to get into pattern matching.
Right.
And so they might overlook a
All those
founder simply.
patterns of women AI founders that they can look at, no.
Right, or for example, a very common thing is you hear all the time in VC that they want founders who worked at, one of the,
Right.
the top tech companies or who went to an Ivy League school or, those kinds of patterns. And so angel investors, especially if you have that expertise that we were talking about, you're more able to understand what it takes to really succeed in the space. And that can be a real asset to you in making decisions outside of a more
Mhm.
formal group structure. But anyway, I think, there's opportunities to get involved by writing small checks individually. I've pitched to groups of angels where that's nice because it's time efficient for the founder where I'm doing one pitch, there might be 25 to 100 people on the call and then, each of those angels could reach out and make an individual investment later if they want. Oh, actually one really amazing investor in my like pre-seed sort of that angel process was part of I forget what they called it. It was like a collective where,
Mhm.
there were several people who, if one person in the collective felt conviction about investing, they
Yep.
all sort of tended to follow.
Yep.
And so even, you really did one or two pitches, but you could get angel checks from each of the people in that group. And the reason was they tended to trust each other's
Yeah,
expertise.
judgment. Yeah.
So, yeah, those are just some of the examples.
So
Mhm.
so beyond cash, what do you value the most from your venture investors, the people who are partnering with you in that way for the long run?
I just wanna go back to the Credo for a second here, and I love this idea of being fierce advocates for each other and reinforcing her voice. I mean, there definitely have been moments where when there have been, tough decisions that I've had to make or, a strong male voice that's maybe drowning out my voice, and to have strength among my investors and have the women who have been backing ClearBrief and who know me well stand up for me, and that's been incredible at different times,
Right.
in the journey. So, I would just say it really makes a difference to founders to know that this person is going to be an advocate for you when you're in the room, when you're not in the room, and, You just know that when, in this journey, as I'm, making strides to grow the company, I can send people to those investors and they'll talk positively about work. And it just really helps a lot to have someone be that fierce advocate. Anyway, and the other really just practical and truly meaningful thing that I just want to say for anyone who's lucky enough to get How Women Invest on your cap table is I have never experienced the level of support with making introductions, business introductions is incredible. And it has made a measurable, meaningful difference. So, what I mean by that is, we're a legal tech platform. We sell to law firms, to, the largest global firms, actually to small boutique firms, to government, to nonprofits. We also sell to in house counsel. And often, what it takes to get a deal started is having a internal champion who's in a position doesn't have to be like the very top, the GC, for example, of an in-house legal team, but somebody who's in a role where they might be a pilot user, they know the right people on the team who would be evaluating these tools so they can get ClearBrief in the conversation. That is so so valuable when especially in such a crowded marketplace when everyone's now looking at AI, everyone's claiming to have AI tools that are magical, to have a voice. We know a company that has proven results, that has won all the awards, that has built something really impactful, and let's look at them. So that's just probably the number one most valuable, thing that is I'm incredibly grateful for.
I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm not asking for a seat at the table. My friends, this is the first generation of us. We have a huge opportunity. We have power and influence and wealth. And we can start building the tables where we get the prime seats. Today, we want to invite you to join us as investors in venture. I know no one's asked you to do it before. It might be something that seems scary or foreign, but I promise you it's not that different than investing in a mutual fund where your retirement funds are. I want you to lean in and just learn a little bit more. How about making a commitment that in the next 12 months, you can give yourself 12 months to figure it out and to take a step. I want to invite you to be part of the new table of power and influence and wealth. You're invited. I want to sit at the table with you because we're going to make big change. We're going to make the world we've been dreaming of.
What's so interesting is in the venture capital world, where the hottest deals like ClearBrief, venture firms will try and say, oh, this is the value I can bring. But the truth is, when you talk to founders, they're like, yeah, they say that, but that's not really what happened. Uh, what do you think that's about? They overstate what they can. I've watched people who overstate what they can do. So they were
Yeah.
planning to be deceitful, but they think that they are whatever that they
Yeah,
can.
I think it often comes from not really understanding their portfolio company and who the right, introduction points are or taking the time to understand, or also just the frequency thing makes a difference. So, for example, they might feel like, "Oh, I made one introduction." It's like, "Okay, we're
I have
trying to
to pitch 10
share our goals.
firms before I can get a yeah.
Yeah, we need a volume. We need a steady stream, a trickle of introductions, and that's when you really because any one introduction for whatever reason might be slow to come to fruition, but that's really where it makes such a difference. Yeah, and I think also it could be. I just one thing I want to point out that maybe isn't an exact answer to this, but what I think How Women Invest does really well, and some other women investors like Rain Ventures, they led our seed round, a Black woman led VC fund, is understanding that they're the male-led, companies that are often they receive so much venture capital, right? They are just drowning in venture capital, and not only are they extremely well capitalized, their investors are calling the decision makers of the clients and putting a lot of pressure on them that they need to purchase
Right,
that solution.
right.
So if you just are looking at the news and you're like, wow, this company's technology must be amazing. They're getting all these deals. That's not really the whole story. It actually, a lot of it is behind the scenes,
Right.
connections. That's how business is done. And I think a lot of women, like myself, to be honest, we're naive and we're like, well, it's just merit based on,
Uh,
quality of the product.
that
No,
would be nice. They only
absolutely,
will.
what's happening is they're putting pressure on their friends and network and connections because they wanna make money too, because they're invested maybe as an LP in that VC fund that put the
Right.
millions of dollars in. So, women are kind of missing out on this whole cycle if
Yeah,
unless we are doing the same thing and
yeah.
saying, "Hey, I'm investing in women-led companies, and I'm pulling the strings so that they know I think this is important that not only that this company is doing something amazing, but that we make sure we're diversifying our investments and taking note of the founders of the
Right.
technology that we're using." So,
So I just want to hang out here for a second, Jackie. I hope everybody who just heard that, you really are listening closely to this. What it is it's cultural and it's not okay. So women culturally are sort of I remember there are a couple women's groups and clubs I've been a part of and or a member of and they're like, "This is a no pitch zone." And it's like, "What are you talking about? We
right?
need to be
Yeah.
pitching nonstop." But or women who are like, "Oh, don't ask me directly for something." And that is it's cultural. So we get it honestly. This is not accusing anyone of not doing something right, but we need to evolve that. We have to be deal making. We have got to be actively using our power and our leverage of our influence to move a needle and get opportunities through. So, all of you, we always say make your first response yes to making an introduction or helping someone. It is very hard for women to ask for help. And when they do, we cannot make them feel shamed about it. That is to me that's such a big issue. So, I think you should just decide you're gonna and it's change making, so you gotta actually commit to it. What do they say? You have to do some behavior reinforcement for 45 days or something, but we have to do deal
Yeah.
making.
Another way to start could be maybe you're not ready to go out and actually make the introduction but take that first step of guiding that founder
Yeah,
to even just something as simple as explaining how the internal purchasing process works at that
yeah,
company. That could be really helpful for that founder so that they'll take the sale and they'll run with it. Just tell us how to position ourselves for success.
yeah,
That could be really another
yeah.
helpful thing that you do that if you're worried about putting yourself on the line. But yeah, I think that it might also be this mantra of it's not that serious. Just make it it's men don't seem to hesitate as much.
They do no, no, they don't.
Look, it's a
Very
founder. Just talk to the founder or don't, but here's the intro. Let
exactly.
the founder if they're going to be successful as a founder they have to be able to seize that opportunity and
Yep,
run with it.
yep.
So don't have too much anxiety about it. No one is expecting that everything that happens from then on is your
Right.
fault and reflect on you. Just it's not that serious. Make that intro.
There we go. I love that. Coming from the lawyer, the litigator, it's not that serious. That's a good that means something. So when you look at your journey as a founder, are there moments like is there a moment where you're like, "Wait, I need to build my network?" Like, are there moments where you're just like, "Oh, aha, this ended up becoming a really critical, pivotal belief or moment for me?"
Yeah, absolutely. I can consciously remember when I was first starting out with ClearBrief, going through LinkedIn, and one of the things I don't know why this came to me, but I thought I need to find a woman who's built an AI product. And this was back in very early 2020, and there weren't tons of articles or anything about
We
women
weren't even talking about AI back then, even though we all now know it existed.
Exactly, and I ended up just scouring LinkedIn, and I found a woman, Anne Jude Hunt, and actually she was one of my very earliest advisors to ClearBrief. She's still an advisor, and she had led product at Realtor.com, and she was amazing, and just right away agreed to meet with me and talk with me, and we just connected right away. She actually ended up helping me connect with a developer to build, like, a prototype before remember I was talking about
Yep,
building out those steps of traction to get any angel investor to take you seriously? Yeah, I think I remember consciously just thinking, I need to use LinkedIn. And before I founded my company, I don't know why, like a couple of years before that, actually, I was sort of an early adopter maybe of LinkedIn. And it ended up really helping me that at least I
yeah,
was familiar with reaching out to people
yeah,
and connecting on LinkedIn. And then that has just become a huge driver of my business at every stage. When I was making that list of the 200
yeah,
data feedback
yeah,
customers, I scoured LinkedIn. So if you think you're gonna get through starting a company without messaging people and DMing them and getting good at communicating how they can help you, doing a very reasonable, quick ask,
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
it
You gotta build that muscle
yeah.
for sure. I cannot believe this time has gone so fast. For everybody listening, 1, if you know anyone in a law firm that does litigation, Jackie, give us the sort of list so they can make an introduction for you.
If you know anyone in big law, actually, and, that's is another thing, so just getting us in the door at a big firm, it could be someone who does transactional work, they know litigators, they know who the right people are, they can make that connection. Yes, litigators, also in-house counsel at companies where the legal department is getting interested in AI and trying to figure out how they can leverage AI. Anyone who handles internal investigations, employment law, in-house, those are some of the intros
And
that will
all
come.
the legal associates will thank you because then they're not doing the grunt work that ClearBrief is able to do for them is what I how I think about it. So, we should all be proactively connecting each other. So, hopefully you can think about who meets that in your network, and Jackie can take it and run with it. The other thing I wanna remind you, women haven't been invited to invest in venture capital, and today there are 300 women-run venture firms. You can find a firm that's perfect for you. Our venture firm is on its 3rd fund, and we have some space for investors. So if you're an accredited investor, let me know. We'd be happy to talk to you about what our firm does. But in general, start talking about money with you and investing with the women around you. Start to become savvy yourself and make sure that you are part of building the world you want to see. We have no time. Nobody can sit on the sidelines right now. It is very obvious that unless we use the resources that we have and actively engage in building the future, we're going to have somebody else build something that is not going to be good for us. So, thank you, Jackie, for your time today. I'm so glad that you joined us.
Can I say one last thing, which is one example of this that's so real that just happened is on MLK Day, ClearBrief partnered with a legal clinic and we helped 160 individuals using our generative AI tool. And so it was incredible to be in that room and see it was a absolute packed crowded room full of people using our platform to help others. I sat with an individual and helped them. Like it was just such a meaningful experience, and I don't think there's that many legal tech startups that would devote the resources we have to building out that specific pro bono workflow and doing that. And so that we can really make a change in the world with our dollars.
Well, and that's what happens when women lead. You look at actually and when women you invest in women founders, we're investing in Clearbrief because we're gonna make a lot of money. But the impact of the values aligned leadership, the kind of leader that Jackie is, that's a perfect example of that. And we need more Jackies leading great companies of the future. So I hope everyone listening today felt like you got motivated and learned something. Tell your 10 friends and get in the game where you're invited. I want you to know that we're here when you're ready. All right. Have a great, great rest of your day, everyone.